Welcome to this tutorial. My name is Xander. Now this tutorial is part of our Express.js Prisma ORM Query Fundamentals course. You can access this course playlist available for free on YouTube. For deeper learning, the full course is available for purchase at Udemy. Find all the resources and links in this video's description. Now don't forget to subscribe to the channel for weekly promotions, discounts, and Udemy course giveaways. In the previous tutorial, we learned how to define tables in our Prisma schema. So let's take a look at actually migrating this to our database, actually creating these tables from our Prisma schema in our actual database. To do that, we need to run a migration. We need to essentially migrate our Prisma schema data to the database to create the database tables in this case. Now, in the context of Prisma, migrations in general are a way of managing and applying changes to our database schema over time. So migrations allow us to keep track of changes made to the database structure. So we may continue to add new tables to our database over time or change existing tables. We may modify relationships. So we can do this in a version-controlled manner here with migrations. This ensures that our database schema remains consistent across different environments because we can safely evolve our database schema as our application grows and keep a record of it through our migration files. If we cause an issue with a migration, we can simply roll back to a known state that we know the database worked okay, and then we can go ahead and troubleshoot and make the changes, make a new migration, and then make the changes to the database once again. Now, don't worry too much. We're going to see this in action. I know I didn't have any slides or images there to help you visualize what I just spoke about there, but let's just make that sink in by actually applying a migration and seeing this in action. Right, so we're going to perform this operation manually. Later on in this module, we'll learn how to automate this process. So when the container starts, it will automatically migrate the tables to the database. Right, so first of all, if you have any containers running, just make sure that you delete those and potentially then any volumes, and the images should be fine if you already have the images, but that's always taken a lot longer. It seems to, over the years, take longer and longer to stop. So I'm just going to remove the volumes, delete those. Right, so first of all, let's recreate the containers. So let's run docker compose up with the build flag. If you already have the images, you don't need the build option, just up and then the D flag. That'll be absolutely fine. So I already have the images. So you can see that takes no time at all to bring up the containers. So that's our containers. Let's just double check to make sure that Express is working. Remember, we should be able to go to localhost and then :3000. Hello. There we go. So the containers look like they're working okay. Right, so now let's actually run a migration. Now to do this, what we're going to need to do is actually run this command on the container. Now we can log into this container. If you head over to the commands here, I've left some commands to help you interact with the containers. So a bit further down in Docker, Postgres, where are we? Oh, it's it. Actually in Postgres. Okay, so this is the Postgres command, which actually isn't useful at all. So bear with me. Okay, sorry, it does exist. I was going to type that out. So this is how to log into our container. So we need to run docker exec it and then the name of the container. Remember, that's what we've defined here, the Express API service. Okay, that's not the name of the container. Yeah, it's the name of the container. And where are we? Yeah. And then we need to then navigate to bin sh. So essentially what we're doing here is we're going to log into the container and then we're going to access the command terminal. And then from here, we can now run commands. So if I type in ls to list all the files, you'll notice that these are all the files that are on the container and they match, in actual fact, this folder here because that's what we're looking at, remember. This folder here mirrors the folder that we have here locally. So we're now in the container. So we now need to run a command to actually migrate our new schema, Prisma schema models that we've created. Okay, so we've created some models previously. So let's go ahead and now migrate. So I provide some instructions here. Now we've already initialized Prisma. We did that in the Docker Compose file. So now we need to generate migration. So this is the first step. First step, we generate a file which is going to show us all of the SQL that's going to be used to create, in this case, the tables in the database. So let's go ahead and run this command, npx prisma migrate dev, and then name init. To quickly break that down, npx, this is the tool that comes with Node Package Manager, allows us to run executables from packages that are installed as dependencies. And of course, what we're doing here is we're running Prisma, or the Prisma CLI. So this is going to help us interact with Prisma. And then we're going to run the command migrate. Okay, so we're going to migrate, or migrate dev. So this command is used to, in the development environment, to generate a migration file. That's what we're doing here. And here we just simply, which is optional, we can name the file that we're creating. Right, so this is going to cause an issue, but that was the whole point. So we can see that when we run this command, we are provided some additional information about errors. And this is going to help us identify errors in our schema. And this is going to be really useful because no doubt we will make errors. So what this is telling us in actual fact is that we cannot make the models yet because we don't have at least one field defined in each of our models. Now, I will talk about this later on in this module, primary keys, but what we're going to do and what we need is to actually define a unique field. In this case, we're going to create the primary key for each table. Like I said, I'll discuss this later on in this module, but just for the sake of this tutorial and to get things started so that we can track and follow this and better understand migrations through the process of actually building our tables, let's add an additional field, the primary key for each of our tables. So I'll just go ahead and just copy and paste that in for now. And like I said, I'll explain it at a later point. But now we have that in order, we will fix this problem. And then hopefully we can now go ahead and migrate. So what's happened here is a new folder has been created, this migration folder. And inside of here, you can see that we have a new file called something underscore init. That's what we named it. Init, initialization, migration. And inside of here, we have an SQL file. And what's happened is that Prisma has read through the information that we provided here in our schema, and it's converted it into an SQL file. Now, inside of here is SQL. So structured query language, this is the language that the database uses to actually perform operations. So Prisma has created that, and then it would then utilize this to actually perform the operation on the database when we run the next command. So we can see and inspect this migration. We can see what's going to happen. We can then use this as a record of the changes that are made in our database. So if we migrate again, what's going to happen is we're going to create a separate migration file, and we're going to be able to keep track of all the changes that we've undertaken in our database. That's the whole point of this migration system. So what's happened here in actual fact is that the migration file was created as well as it being automatically applied to the database. So it's performed both generation of the file, the migration file, and has also synced the database to actually create the tables in the database. Now there is a separate command here, which is npx prisma migrate deploy. And this command is used in production environments or when you want to manually apply migrations to your staging or production database. It applies all unapplied migrations that have been generated but not yet deployed to the database. So we can test that theory out. I'm going to type in exit here to exit the container. I'm going to use Command K on the keyboard. I'm in Mac, so it's slightly different on Windows to clear that. And if we go back into the commands here, just below where we connected to the Express container, let's now connect to our Postgres container. So we can actually go into the Postgres, our database container. From there, we can go ahead and inspect our tables. So what we're going to need to do here is type in PSQL with the U. Actually, I didn't leave this and we're going to need the information about the database. So my user, I think we have done this before previously, and then we need to define the database, so my database. Okay, so we can now connect to our database. We can run the DT command, and from here you can actually now see all the tables that we've created through that migration process in our actual Postgres database. Notice that Prisma did also create a separate table for Prisma migrations to keep record of the migrations that have been performed. So you might need to press Q to quit that screen. That'll take you back here. And from there, I'm just going to type in exit and then exit again to exit the container. And that then takes me back to the terminal on my local machine. Okay, so as we work through each stage of building our tables, we'll go ahead and create a migration so that we can see it in action.